Thank you everyone coming for the second day. Um, so basically, I'm just going to start from where we sort of left, and just wanted to, because I think I sort of went a bit fast yesterday because we had a little bit of time. So I just wanted to go through these slides a bit more. In case you have any question, you can put them in the chat box. So it is very important when you want to logically connect your chapters, specifically if you're writing PhD or masters, because you have like at least 5 chapters and you have your body chapters, which because you write them separately in different time frames. So at times it is very difficult to connect the chapters and all. So I did talk about these, how you can sort of connect one chapter with the previous chapter or the upcoming chapter. And you have to make sure that you have to like back and forth keep referring to your research question and the objective, and how each chapter sort of pertains to a certain research question or certain research objective as your dissertation sort of spans out. uh, there's another thing is that it is very important that you sort of outline your each chapter, or even if you're writing a journal paper, it is good to have like a pen and paper and what you want to put down in that chapter or in that research article, because it just helps you answer the research question in a much more nuanced way. So how, and it is also important that you have already introduced certain literatures and certain themes in your introduction or in your literature review. So it is very important that you sort of keep on cross-referring them, or you sort of refer some of the important themes and literature, or cross-reference them whenever you're discussing them in your body chapter. For example, I was working in environmental anthropology in Sundarbans, where one of the stalwarts or pioneers is Anujalai. And what I did was that when I'm trying to make explicit connection, sorry, between chapters, I wanted to say something like build on Jalai's insight, or there are similar contentions, or this chapter builds on this a particular author's argument. So it just helps you show and your reader that you are able to connect your analysis with the literature or with the references that you have mentioned throughout in your literature review. It is also okay that if you want to have contradiction in their findings. So in my dissertation, I've also made sure that I pull out some of the contradictions, some if I'm critiquing a reference, a critiquing a theme or an author. So make sure that you go back and forth with the references, and make sure whatever references you put a thesis, dissertation, or research article, they should all be there in your bibliography or at the end of your references. And make sure that you also be consistent in using a particular terminology or a particular concept. So if you are, I was having a lot of problem whether I should use the term Sundarban or should I use the term Sundarbans. So when I was writing freehand writing, somewhere I wrote Sundarban, somewhere I wrote Sundarbans. But at the end, when you are sort of polishing or vetting your dissertation or thesis or your research article, make sure that these terminologies are um, and again, like your chapter length of the chapter balanced. Often introduction is becomes lengthier, because if you incorporate your thesis and everything. Just 1 minute. Similarly, I think one important is that if you use some visuals, if also you are writing an ethnography, if also you don't have quantitative data, it is good to use some flow, some diagram. It just helps the reader just connect to your work. Just 1 minute. So make sure that when you are writing a journal article per se, and you have a lot of qualitative data, it is good to use flowchart and diagram. And there is a lot of there are a lot of AI tools that you can take help of, or you can just basically take the help of Microsoft PowerPoint. Uh, so now we'll be talking about how we can sort of convert a chapter into a journal paper. So if you have so yeah, where we were, so how can we sort of convert um, a journal, a chapter into a journal paper? So if you have a chapter written, let's say at this point of time when I've finished my PhD and I want to publish my chapter into a journal, see, I already have everything written. So I have to find a perfect CFP, that which is a call for paper, or a particular journal which is the best fit for this already written chapter, so that I have to avoid making major changes to my work. In case, obviously, you are just half written your chapter, you're about to write a chapter, and you find a journal, then you can sort of tweak your chapter writing to best fit your whatever journal that you have found. So chapters are usually a long written. Sometimes it's 30 pages, even 40 pages in some cases. So and they usually overshoot like 10,000, sometimes become 15,000 words a chapter, whereas a journal paper is usually 7 to 8,000. And in that, you need to make sure that you fit in everything of your chapter. But I feel like you cannot fit everything of your chapter, so you have to pick and choose what you can fit of your chapters into a journal paper. So you have to sort of condense your introduction and literature review. So you just give introduction to the literature review that you feel are relevant to the journal and relevant for that particular journal article. Because in that particular journal article that you are going to convert from your chapter, you're not going to discuss all the themes that you have dealt in your chapter. So it is very important that you sort of pick the themes or the ideas that you are going to put out in your journal paper. So at present, I'm sort of I've just like I've got my reviews back from one of the journals, and where what I did was that I've tried to cut out a lot of information, and I felt that whatever is required, let's say I had 3 themes, and out of the 3 themes I've picked up 2 themes and I've let go of one theme. And why I picked up those 2 things, so this is a journal of human ecology, and I put out those 2 things because it was fitting more from the perspective of human ecology, and the third theme wasn't fitting more. And I think it is good to sort of discuss with your supervisor, if you're co-authoring with them, which themes you should be incorporating, and so on and so forth. But make sure that you don't put everything of your chapter into a journal paper, because journal papers are very to the point, very nuanced. Your chapter is quite elaborate in that sense. You sometimes repeat a lot of anecdotes, and repeat similar data. Here you have to just pick and choose what you feel is the most relevant, right? And make sure the kind of guidelines that journal has. It is good to that you can like download the previous published paper from that journal, couple of papers that are similar to your topic, just to see how they have written. It just helps you structure your journal article better. It is not always that your chapter will be equivalent to your journal paper, at least in humanities, social sciences. Whereas in sciences and in engineering, what they do is that they already write it in the form of a paper, and that's why their chapters are usually like smaller in length. That is, they would be writing an 8,000 or 9,000 word paper, but a lot of obviously images and data they might have. So and make sure the word count that they have, the referencing format. For example, you have used footnotes in your dissertation, but this particular journal would require you to write endnotes. So you have to like change a lot of things from your chapter to your journal paper. So it's a long process. So just because you have a chapter written and you have to convert it in your journal paper, it will take some time. That is something important. Um, so Now, if you have a published paper, so in my case, I had a couple of published paper and opinion articles, and I wanted to put that in my chapter. But there is a fear that, if you put everything in your in your dissertation, it might get caught in plagiarism. That is completely fine, depending upon which institute you are and how much you're allowed to, self-cite yourself. But what I did is that in the beginning of my dissertation, I sort of gave a sort of heads up to the reader, saying that some section of this dissertation has already been published as a peer-reviewed journal, and you sort of cite those journals or those opinion pieces. And I also, what I did is that before incorporating the published segment, so I'm writing a dissertation. I'll show that at the end if we have time. Just go through my dissertation if you want to. What I did is that, let's say I'm in one of the chapters, and what I did was, uh, in a subsection where I felt that I want to include a portion of my published article. Before that section, I just wrote that this section of this chapter is published in this peer review article. So it's just helps the reader know that you have also published your papers, or they are in peer review, especially if you are a PhD dissertation person, and just gives the reader or the reviewer an impression that you are in the journey of publication, or you have already published, or you have already gone through a peer review process. Now coming to rebuttal and responses, I think this you're going to get in your journal paper, a peer reviewed journal paper, and obviously in your PhD dissertation. As per IIT Gandhinagar, we have our PhD goes to 3 of the external, in the combination of 2 international and 1 national, or 2 national, 1 international. So it is all on your luck. We often don't get to know who is our reviewer at the end. I don't know about other institute, but I think it is very same in IISers and IITs. But usually it goes to review work across every university in India. So how do we sort of structure our response sheet? So in a journal paper, often you have to write a cover letter saying that you just address it to the editor, saying that we sincerely thank the reviewers for reading our manuscript and providing useful comments and constructive suggestions. And we have now prepared a point-wise response to the reviewers' comment. Please have a look at it, and I hope this fits this revised paper sort of fits the scope of the journal. And then you sort of attach your response sheet. I'm talking about when it's about your journal manuscript, and when it is about your thesis or dissertation, you also write that as per, if you are having response sheet separately for your dissertation, and it is important that you sort of address them separately, not together, saying that I thank all the reviewers like we do it in a journal paper, because obviously it is okay to sort of club them together. But when you're doing it for your dissertation, make sure that you respond to your reviewer separately. So for example, I had separate sheets for my reviewers, and where for example, in one place I said I express my sincere gratitude to reviewer one for dedicating their time. And make sure that you also because your reviewer is going to also say good things about you, right? So make sure that you also acknowledge that, and not just make a point wise comment and all the question that they have posed. So address, it is very important, whether it's a manuscript journal or it's your dissertation, you have to address each comment one by one, like reviewer 1, comment 2, reviewer 2, comment 10, something like that. And make sure to respond each comment, how small and insignificant it is. This is especially for dissertation. Make sure you comment everything that they have commented. Specifically, there are like pros and cons a section of the reviewers in a dissertation. So make sure that you at least comment everything in the cons, how small it is. Like, let's say they say that the numbering in the pictures are not perfect, so this is a quite insignificant, right? But make sure that you respond to that. And if you are sort of sort of making some changes, so make sure that when you're making this response sheet and when you are attaching your whole response to it, you write whatever changes have been made. So for example, you can write their revised sentence now you can find in page number 28, or changes made on page 10 lines this, so that the reviewer for both manuscript and both dissertation, they know that you have read through each review very minutely, and you have addressed to them. And one more thing that specifically for both manuscript and or for your dissertation, you don't have to accept all the comments. It is okay to address it and defend it, but also very politely and respectfully. You cannot just say that, thank you for this comment, but I don't want to change this. But you have to just, it's just about playing with the words. So for example, one of my reviewer, she suggested me 3 or 4 authors to sort of uh, reconsider them into my literature, and I decided to not incorporate one of the authors, saying that if you read here that this theoretical ideas did not fit into my thesis, as they were outside the scope of my research. So you can frame something like that, this particular author, or thank you for the suggestion, however, due to the brevity of the time, and we couldn't perform this experiment, or we felt that this is something that we did not wanted to deal with our research, because this will change the whole research course altogether. So make sure that you sort of incorporate these little positive comments to defend your or for not changing or not incorporating that review. And then obviously for journal, you have to write a rebuttal letter, but obviously for dissertation you don't have to. um, so now just giving you some of the basic tips to sort of writing, uh, to just make sure that whether it's a journal paper and or your dissertation or master's thesis, you just keep sure that these things are sort of just helps you just structure your dissertation throughout. Obviously, you know all of these tips, but I'm just going to, just go through them once again. For example, when in doubt, it's better to cite. It is always good to cite, and make sure you are citing the sources when you're quoting, when you're paraphrasing. Often we are also sort of taking ideas from a particular scholar, and we felt, oh, this is a nice idea, but if this is idea, let's say there's an idea of like how a particular system sort of helps the community come together, and let's say this idea was established by an author in the context of Brazil. So you are doing it in India, so you feel like, oh no, I'm just taking some of the ideas by this author, but I'm my research this was somebody who was doing it economics, but I'm an anthropologist, why would I cite them? Or I'm doing it in a new perspective, so do I need to cite them? Yes, you have to cite them. You have to summarize the idea and cite them. You can also, if you feel that it's just some vague idea that we have taken from them, at least cite them in your footnote or in your endnote. But make sure you do that, because often what happens, you've written your dissertation or you've written your journal paper, and an author who has actually worked on that, whose idea or whose work you have cited or is not credited, they can actually sue you for that. And this has happened to a lot of people. So please make sure that you do not miss out any citation. And dissertation writing is a huge process. And for example, let's say in a master's thesis writing, you're just writing the last 2-3 months, and you are all bogged up into writing. Sometimes you have read a reference maybe months back or years back, and you have forgotten that particular references to sort of cite, and again, that is a plagiarism. So make sure that you keep track of all the references, the quotations that you're writing, to avoid any sort of accidental omission. So it is better that you can have an online document, or a pen and paper with you all the time, or something like in your just laptop, a Word file where you can just copy paste the references that you have read, and you have to come back to it. Specifically, if you are putting some online references, some newspapers, some opinion articles, legit, they don't have, you have to create their citation, right? So it is better to sort of have their link so that, whenever you are writing at the end, when you are citing them, it is just going to help you to not miss out any citation. Again, paraphrasing is very important. You just don't change words. So let's say, Jalai cited that, ecotourism in Sundarbans will always impact the living condition, and I just changed the word is that, the living condition of the Sundarban people would dwindle if they bring ecotourism into the scenario. And I just don't cite one. Obviously, I forget citing Jalai. That would be wrong. But also, it's like I haven't paraphrased it carefully, and it will get caught into plagiarism. It is very important that you change the whole structure of the sentence, and you know what you are paraphrasing. It should be the idea. It should be the statement that you are paraphrasing, just not the words here and there, making active to passive or passive to active. Again, quotations, you have to, many a times you have to use direct quotations, but make sure that you sort of use it less. Try to do not overdo with quotations. I was also said by one of the reviewers that, I have a lot of quotations, so I had curtailed them down in my response review sheet, where I sort of change the quotation into, like, I have to paraphrase the quotation and not use a lot of quotation marks. So, and if you have more than 40 words of quotation, you have to indent and italicize. So these are something I think you all know. There is also, a conundrum between whether you are over-referencing versus whether you are under-referencing. If it is a dissertation, I would suggest that it is better to a bit over-reference than going under-reference, because, it just helps your work look neat, and it also shows the reviewer that you have read a lot of work. But make sure that you're just not throwing away random citations because they are just there. Somebody has worked on this. Make sure you only cite the primary authors that you have read, not the author that they have read in the author. That's not required. And try to group reference, if to avoid excessive referencing in one line. And also try, verbosity is very important, because it helps you sort of how you want to keep your dissertation. How does your dissertation will look to a reviewer, or even your journal paper. So you need to keep your sentences short. I had a lot of back and forth with Professor Shada. I used to write a lot of complex sentences, and this, that. It's like a one sentence which is like 3, 4, even 6, 7 lines. So I was asked to sort of, make sure that you have to cut short these long sentences into shorter ones. So it is important to be sort of try to avoid phrases like "it is important to note" or "in this regard." See, it is okay that we write them, but don't overwrite all of this thing. And avoid using languages like, as one of my, let's say I'm writing as one of my interlocutor talked about couple of the stuffs or a thing. Do not write these vague words. Try to mention, what is that thing, what is a lot. Try to mention it in number, or give them some specificity to it. And obviously trimming unnecessary words and sentences as write your dissertation. So now something that I'm going to talk about might not be very relevant to the other institute people, but very relevant to people who are doing PhDs from IIT Gandhinagar, and maybe a similar let's say you are on your last leg of your PhD, and you have written all your chapters, and you have gone through, you have sort of collated all your chapters properly, and I will keep on repeating, they are properly numbered. You have sort of vet and polished your dissertation properly. You have a proper table of content, a table of glossary, everything is out there. And make sure that whatever in-text citation you have, all of them are there in your final reference list. Do not miss out on anything. Make sure you have a friend with you who would just go back and forth with your reference list. And once your supervisor sort of gives a green signal, okay, now it's time to, finally go ahead and submit it. In IITGN, we have to submit our thesis or our dissertation to library for plagiarism check. It is both for masters and PhD students. And within a couple of days, you will get two reports. One will be with bibliography and one will be without bibliography. So with bibliography, if your similarity index is under 20%, then you proceed ahead with submission. And if it is more than 20%, then there is an endorsement form that has to be signed by your supervisor stating that, the over the 20%, whatever similarity thing was there, it came out of the published paper from the student. So make sure that, if it shoots more than 20%, it is because that you have your own paper being self-cited there, and not because of plagiarism, other kind of plagiarism. And this is a sort of required document submission list for PhD students of IIT Gandhinagar. So sort of there you will find them in the IWS, that is the internal website system. But this is all the reviewers list. I had two similarity indexed. With bibliography it was 13%, and another without bibliography it was 2%. So basically I did not need to get my endorsement form. And one asks that, I already put my chapters in the thesis, but why did not it get sort of why there was so less of a similarity index? One, because I sort of italicized my whatever portion of my published paper I've put into the my dissertation. I have all italicized it, so that and put them and I have self-cited myself for multiple times, so that I don't I sort of don't get plagiarized. So these are the list. I'm not going to go through all of this thing. And finally, so these are the 10 list. Obviously, I'll share this PPT with you, so you will have a backup. And then once you submit it to the academics and the thesis office, the academic office will sort of acknowledge your submission. And then once it is done, and make sure, sorry, I forgot that, along with that, you also have to give a list of examiners for thesis review. So this is a whole ball game altogether. You have to sit with your supervisor, and this is for everybody across every institute, that, a list of examiners that goes at IIT Gandhinagar. The decision is made in tandem with the student and the supervisor. But I don't know for other institute, maybe it's just your supervisor who's going to give a list of examiner to the academic office. Be smart in choosing the list of examiners here. Choose the ones that you have cited a lot in your thesis. It just helps them satisfy their ego that, you have cited them a lot. It's just a small tip. And then you have to wait for your thesis. For in IITs, technically it takes a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 to 7 months, at least 3 to 5 months. So I submitted my thesis at just on the 30th of December 2023. However, it was the holiday time, and I had no checklist of this document with me, so I missed out on a couple of and the forms, there are certain forms, and form needs to be very diligently filled. I sort of missed out on some part, and also I have to refill all of this thing, and there was a lot of chaos. So finally my thesis went for review in the mid of January. And it's also about how quickly your reviewers accept your papers to read, right? Not that all the reviewers will, okay, yeah, I've got a paper to read. They might accept it, might not accept it, because if they have time or not. So it takes around 3 to 6 months. Let's say my went in January, I got all my reviews by the early May. By the first week of May, I got all the 3 reviews. So I got both my reviews quite early, but the third reviewers, usually they take a lot of time, in most cases, and it came quite late for me. And it also takes you time to then prepare, right? And if it is taking a bit long time, make sure that you check with your supervisor, check with your academics office that how long it will take. And then and this for everybody across all the institute. It depends upon what kind of uh, revisions that you get. So in IIT Gandhinagar, you sort of get minor revision, a major revision, or no revision. In three of the papers, I got minor revisions. So technically, what happens in minor revision is that you don't have to sort of respond to each of the reviewer. You just make a compiled rebuttal sheet, and you are good to go for defense. And you just have to give that rebuttal sheet to your final defense committee. You don't have to go back and forth with your particular reviewer. But if it's a major correction and that reviewer wants you to, sort of, get back to them with the feedbacks that they have given, so that's again, you have to maybe rewrite a particular chapter or rewrite some portion of your chapter and get back to that particular reviewer. That reviewer will review your whole thesis again and then get back to you. So if a major correction happens, then the defense might take a bit long time. But at the end, everybody gets through it. So I've shown how to do a prepared detail sheet. So in IIT Gandhinagar, we have to like sort of submit this revised thesis, the rebuttal sheet, and then there is an internal examiner form for us. And then the academics office sort of assigns a defense examiner, one external and one internal. And then you sort of prepare for your defense, right? And then I would just suggest, obviously, a lot of, I think a very few of you are in the last leg of your PhD. But if you're in your last leg of your PhD and if you're planning to submit your thesis, and you have submitted your thesis, and the review will take around 3-4 months time, make sure that you use that time to apply for jobs, postdoc, and publish the chapters that you wanted to publish, right? So yeah, that's it, I think. And just I think we had a small there was a small a question yesterday that how we can do a literature review. So this is a kind of the literature review sort of a condensed form that just helps you just quickly do a literature review. But keep in mind that it is an ongoing process. You need to be staying updated with the latest research, because the reviewer or even your journal reviewer might say that why haven't you incorporated this particular paper, because it is so relevant at this point, it has just come out. So make sure that you stay updated. So for literature review, obviously people who are just joining PhD and all, make sure, obviously you all know we have to, there are different searching database, JSTOR, Scopus, Web of Science, Google Scholar. I think I have used Google Scholar a lot. And there is also something known as Research Rabbit. You can also use that. Make sure that, at the beginning, you don't know what your particular research topic is. You are just fiddling around certain ideas, certain themes. So go with the keywords. If you want to do at a particular field site, say, ecotourism in Banerghatta National Park, ecotourism in Karnataka. And then, you'll find a lot of topics that would come up, a lot of scholars that would come up. It is good to sort of utilize research tools. As I said yesterday, Zotero is there, Mendeley is there, Research Rabbit also helps you, do that. I did try to maintain with Zotero, but at the end, I came down jotting down everything in a pen and paper. I had a small file where I just made sure that I put down the major books and the articles that I'm reading. And it is also important that you sort of need to evaluate the sources that you are sort of citing. Sometimes try to avoid, sources and work which you feel are not very important in your work. They are just a review work. They do not add value to your dissertation or to your literature. It is okay to let go of them. And make sure that you sort of read the stalwarts and the pioneers of your thematic or of your literature. Keep citing them, keep reading them, see who all people have also sort of cited this stalwart or pioneer. It just helps you, get more access to the better papers similar to your research interest. And it would be good. I tried starting with that, writing little summary, anecdotal bibliography, as you say, a little summary of each paper. Eventually, I stopped doing that. But it just helps you to write, if you want to summarize a paper, at least the ones that you feel are the most important. There will be certain papers, there will be certain authors that you will be repeatedly citing in your thesis. So make sure that you know those papers by heart. Make sure that you know those stalwarts, those ideas at the back of your mind. And you can always organize your reviews, chronologically, thematically, methodologically. I remember when I was doing my master thesis, I got this tip about, like I was doing on water contamination. That was my master's thesis on. And what I did was that I did an area-based review where I did the international scenario of drinking water scenario. Then I sort of narrowed it down to the national, that is the India level, and then I narrowed it down to the state and then to the regional level. That also helps you in your review. You can also organize it chronologically if you are a history or specifically an archaeology student or an anthropology student. You want to have a chronological review of a particular theme. And then obviously there is methodological review. If your work is extremely methodology heavy, which was mine, I had to do a review of methodology itself. So yeah, I think and obviously thematic reviews you have to do. And if you have any questions, I also sort of just wanted to show you this thing. If you want to find any fellowship and grant, make sure, I was telling you yesterday, make sure you join different pages and groups in social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There are different academic group. There are different newsletters that you can subscribe. They give you access to different grants, different call of papers, and make sure that you sort of bookmark these fellowship. Sometimes you are just scrolling in your phone. There is something known as opportunity desk. If you go back and find, there's something known as opportunity desk. They have a lot of people with postdoc fellowship, grant fellowship, writing fellowship, and you're just scrolling in your phone and you forget, and then it's like, oh, I just saw that, and you cannot go back. So make sure that you just sort of save them or you just bookmark them. And whenever you're free, maybe on weekend, just try to go back to these bookmarked fellowships, list them down, and just helps, and list them down the one that you think are achievable. And just one little tip: if you're applying for the first time for any fellowship or grant, try to aim. This is something I know it might not work for you. What I started doing is that I in the beginning I applied to a lot of bigger grants, like WWF, Vengren, and I did not get them. So extremely devastated. Then I thought, let's try about achieving the grants which have a little or smaller budgets. So and then I started doing that, going for smaller fellowships. Then you get that confidence if you get one, and then you start taking one step higher. So yeah, I think I will stop here. And if you want, I can also share my rebuttal sheet. Please do not take screenshot. It's just um, if you can, I've just tried to share my rebuttal sheet, how it looks into your yeah. So this is how thesis rebuttal. So this is how an IIT Gandhinagar evaluation of thesis report looks like. So your name and everything, and this is something your feature of the thesis. Please comment on the general organization of the thesis and all. This is something your reviewer is going to write for you, and these are the certain questions that you get. Um, I mean, I think this is very similar across IIT, IISER, and also across all the institutes. So these are certain things the reviewer will be asked to comment. The forms might be different, but similar questions will be around all the Indian institutes. So whether this is a good quality, has the thesis embodied a new idea and all, are there correction in punctuation, grammar, spelling mistake and all. And just for this one, it says none. The other twos, it said minor for me. Make sure that it doesn't, in your technical content of the thesis, especially if you're an HSS student, if somebody says, there is a major grammatical error and they point out your grammatical error, is just becomes a bit of a sus for the reviewer to sort of read. So that's why I keep on saying that, once you have just written everything, make sure that, go through your grammar properly so that you can avoid the major grammar mistake. Grammar mistake will always be there, but try to avoid, grammar mistakes as much as possible, or spelling mistakes rather, or language. And so there was a question, please highlight the strong and the weak point in the thesis. So, and there is also incorporation of suggestion. If you see here, minor queries or suggestions are modification to which the student replies, and it has to be communicated to the oral board. So here what the reviewer is suggesting, that this is minor communication, minor suggestions that I need to incorporate, and I do not have to reply this particular reviewer, and I can directly send it to the oral board or the defense committee. But if you get checked for the next one, for example, then you have to make this response to this particular reviewer, because that reviewer wasn't a bit satisfied, right? So, and it is also okay if you get the second option, because it's just you have to just satisfy this reviewer's ego or something like that. But make sure that you respond to every reviews properly, and then there is certain recommendations that the reviewer would give. And so they also sometimes give an elaborate review of your thesis, so they do add some attachment to it. So this is a whole attachment of what he felt about my review. And then this is how I sort of response to reviewer 3, I sort of want to extend my thankfulness, and then I sort of respond to the sort of responses. And just giving an example on the one that I've got a lot of comments, but that was also, so this is a lot of comments that I've got. So that was, so there's a minor query. So I've got one in, I have to, are there corrections in grammar? There are minor, but make sure you either get this option or this option in your thesis, at least for IIT Gandhinagar or IISER people, or IIT Pan IIT is just, you are good to go. But in case you get this, it is completely okay. You just have to rewrite certain portion of your thesis and get back to them. And once they give a green signal, you are good to go. I think many of you are quite far away from this particular phase, but people might be quite near to that. So yeah, and something that I wanted to show you again. So see if you can read here. So this is a portion that was already published in a peer-reviewed journal. So what I did is that I wrote that this section is a part of a published peer-reviewed journal article, and so and then sort of I have written this thing, and then I've sort of kept on citing myself, so that or citing myself again, so that I don't get plagiarized, and so that I am under the 20% thing. But it is okay if it is more than 20%, you just need an endorsement letter. And that being said, so this is my dissertation. I don't think I will. And yeah, I think I have gone through, and I think we can have the last 10-15 minutes with all your queries and questions if you have anything in your mind. And I will share the PPT by tonight. Yeah, and thank you so much for joining. So if you have any question, please ask me, or you can also raise your hand. In case, I don't know if you don't have any queries, any last minute queries that you want to ask, you think that I can be helpful in one way. So I think Monica has said that can we Rajasthan, and I'm working on this aspect in my research. If yes, then how should I use it? So obviously, Monica, if you are, sort of re-establishing somebody else's work. So here, what you are doing is that, somebody has already re-established a theory, or an argument, and you are just repeating that process, but in a different context. here what obviously when you're writing literature review or analysis, it is completely okay to sort of but make sure that you are citing him. There is no problem in plagiarizing, but you also have to use the term saying that you are taking inspiration from the work done by Singh 2020 on a pollen study in Rajasthan. We are doing similar work and inspired by this work. So make sure that you cite them wherever possible, and it is completely okay by taking somebody's idea but also acknowledging them, but make sure that you are not replicating exactly everything. You are just taking an inspiration. So make sure you write that you are getting inspiration for them, or you are taking some cues from their work. So yeah, it will not be considered. Um, how do you deal with some artifact which is in private hands for citation? Okay, this is something. Yeah, I think this is also very difficult to answer, because often first of all, is it okay? It's your institution. I don't know about ethical clearances and all, but for archaeology history here as well, you need to take ethical clearance. If also you are working with artifacts, because you are getting access to somebody's personal museum or a public museum or somebody's personal sort of hand. So make sure, yes, you do have to cite them. There is a way of citing personal hands mix or personal artifacts, citing somebody who has said in some interview and you want to cite them. So you have to cite them. Maybe you just have to cite them saying that this person has authorized you, and you say their name and their year. If they're not okay giving out their names, you can use a synonym, a different name, a pseudonym, sorry, a pseudonym, and use it. But you put the right date and the right time when you have access to that particular artifact. So it is very important that you cite if also it's a private citation, private artifact. And yeah, there's another question. How does one need to attach the transcription of the interview as annexures if interviews are used in the dissertation? Um, uh, Otolanto, I think if I'm not wrong pronouncing your name. I have not. I had 72 interviews of locals and another 10 for stakeholders. I did not, because it is impossible to incorporate this amount of interviews in your dissertation, and it is not required. But if you are, let's say, if you're dealing with smaller numbers, so I saw one of my seniors' dissertation. She was doing a mixture of cultural studies, literature, and ethnography, and her interviews were just 20, 30 interviews. So they sort of did. It was not an ethnography; it was just a Q&A, a small Q&A, and they just put that transcript at the end. But it is not required. I did not. In my annexure, I had the probable question that were asked. I had the participant information sheet. I had the survey form attached to it, but I did not have the interview. Also, you have to understand that if you are doing an ethnography, you are also dealing with a lot of personal information, and you cannot have access. You cannot talk a lot, or express those personal information as a written document and have it in the annexure. So talk to your supervisor whether it is important, but if you're dealing with a lot of personal information and if it's ethnography, it is not required. But if you're dealing with mixed method, maybe somebody who is from the background of economics or quantitative sociology or public policy, and if you have like smaller interviews and you feel that those are very important, you can have that at the annexure. But it is not important. Do not have, because I had a lot of interviews, and they were like 3 hours, 2 hours, 5 hours interviews, and it wasn't feasible. So yeah. I have a question from Sri Lakshmi. What should we do if any of our participants are not ready to sign the consent form but ready to give us the information? Um, So two things. I don't know. I did not go ahead signing any of the consent form. What I did was taking the consent in the audio or in the audio record. So it just helps, whenever you are starting, just are you okay if I record this? Let's say if they also don't prefer recording and they don't want to, it is completely okay. And what you can do is that when you are writing your thesis in the beginning, you can always mention that, some of my participants weren't comfortable, signing the participant, the sign of consent form, and their information has been incorporated, but their name hasn't been disclosed. Because they are not ready to sign your consent form, you cannot also use their name. So you can only use them as an anonymous. So yes, you can. It would be best if you take a verbal consent from them. It is also okay that you just have the verbal consent if recorded, not recorded. But I don't think they will have a problem with a verbal consent, right? If they don't want to sign, and it is okay. I think we work with a lot of communities who do not want to sign because they want to share a lot of personal and political things. So it is completely fine if you take it a verbal record. That's completely okay. But make sure that you talk to your supervisor about this, and make sure that it is written in the IEC form, because I know Sri Lakshmi, she's from IIT Gandhinagar. We have a whole IEC internal ethics committee thing. So you do mention about this in your IEC, so that there is no sort of later on nobody challenges your dissertation. I have another question from Darshana. How should we go about the note making process? Sometimes it becomes very cumbersome. Should we make notes when we going through a reading, or post the reading process when we have a clearer idea? Darshana, it's actually it's a very personal thing, to be honest. What I usually did was that I would write the note when I am reading the paper. Usually what happens is that it takes me a bit of more time to finish a paper. That was, I don't know, that was the practice I did, because I think when I was reading the paper, I was getting a lot of idea. And I'm a bit old school in that way. I would often take out printouts. Later on, I shifted to my tab or to my laptop. But if you're reading in laptop, it is good to have a notebook and just jotting down some ideas, because when you are reading, you might have a lot of question, a lot of ideas, and you might have to go back and forth. So it's okay to just jot some ideas or some words down. Maybe later on when you're free, maybe when you do not want to read and you feel like you've read 5 6 paper, let's say you've read on eco philosophy, you've read a lot of papers and you've understood couple of things, but you are also questioning a lot of things. You can just sit and write. But as archaic is sound, as old school is sound, trust me, writing will help, whether you type it in your laptop or when you're writing in hand. But what I would suggest is, what I did is that I did it while reading the paper. It just helped me connect and keep my whatever the question or the thought that I was getting during reading process, they were all jotted down. It was very haphazardly, but I still had something written there. So yeah, that is how it works. But you're free to do how it works for you, what best works for you. Um, Monica says, for example, if you want to work on paleo environment, then I have to do a pollen study. In that case, can I use the published report of the person who have done the study earlier, or I have to do sampling and pollen study by myself? Uh, Depends. If you're doing a literature review, if it is a literature review paper, so in sciences and many a times also in social sciences, but I've seen in sciences and engineering, people do a literature review paper. So if it is a literature review paper, it is completely fine because you are talking and dealing with published reports and all. But if it is a different paper, it is an analysis paper, it is a review paper, then you have to do the sampling and pollen study. So it is also depending upon the kind of paper that you are focusing on, whether it is a review paper that you want to publish, or it is a journal analysis paper that you want to publish. So make sure that you know this difference. If it is a review paper, then it is completely find different Poland studies work on paleo environment. So not exactly you would study this person, this Singh from Rajasthan, but you will study a lot of other people who have done Poland study in different area, because it's a review paper. But if it's an analysis paper, I would suggest that you talk to your supervisor, but it is better to do sampling, because it will just give you that you have done that work and you have not taken somebody else's work and just published it out there. And if you want to do that, another suggestion, you might want to get in touch with that particular scholar. If it is a newer scholar and if they're still alive, you can reach out to them and say if they're okay with it. And if they give a consent to it, then go ahead. But yeah, it is better to talk to a particular scholar if you think you're going to heavily cite, and with your supervisor, and come to a consensus decision. So yeah, I think, I don't know if there are any other questions. There's one more. How do we know if this is a peer-reviewed article or not? Because it depends on the journal. There is also a lot of like non-peer-reviewed journal. Make sure also you cite Q1, quartile 1 and quartile 2 journals. Sometimes there are these a lot of people say that I don't know, there are certain journals that people try to avoid, because they take money to publish and all of this thing. But it is okay if you find that the work is really good and it is very relevant to your work, then go ahead. But most journal, let's say there is a couple of these journal which are, I think, these predatory journals. Specifically, there is Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences and all. If also a lot of people have called MDPI and Frontiers as predatory, because a lot of good scholars, a lot of stalwarts, and a lot of professor level scholars have also published in these journals, so it is okay. But there are certain journals which are predatory in nature. Try to avoid citing them. But if you think a paper is really good, go ahead citing that paper. You will always find, just if you want to know if it's a peer-reviewed paper or not, just write that name of that journal and just see whether it's Q1 or Q2. Usually Q1, quartile 1 and quartile 2 journals are good journals. Q3, okay, but Q4, I would suggest do not, but that's completely fine. But because I have also cited a lot of these journals because I felt those were relevant. So I'm writing my thesis on decolonizing indigenous methodology, drawing from, incorporating Western conventional methodologies of both qualitative and quantitative approach. Cresswell, please suggest if the adopted methodology can be considered multiple. Oh, okay, Cecilia. Seems like we work on the similar methodology. But see, this is something I think you have to come up with. But when you're talking about decolonizing indigenous methodology and all, and when you're trying to incorporate Western conventional methodologies of both qualitative and quantitative, obviously I've done Cresswell. If it is both qualitative and quantitative, you just have these two, qualitative and quantitative, then it is mixed method. For my example, I called it a multiple methodology, and because I used qualitative, which is qualitative, quantitative, and also participatory methodology. So I had more than two methodologies being used, 2 to 3, sorry, 3 to 4 at least. So that was one of the reason I went ahead, calling it multiple methodology. But read a lot. I think there are a lot of paper it is out there that you can sort of look into it. People who have talked about multiple methodology, and I think, but make sure that whenever you are using any term, it would always better that the consequence of it. If you're using mixed method, make sure that you are you have a particular analysis, a particular rather argument to it, that why have you used mixed method. Or if you are sort of using multiple method, then you should know why you are using multiple method. Why have you used the term, sort of multiple methodology approach? So I would suggest a scholar whose name is Mick Mayer. You can read him. And I have sort of read his paper, and in that context, I have utilized the term mixed method. So in case, I'm just going to write, it's Mick Mayer 2020. You can just read him, and I hope it will help you out. Yeah, I think we do not have any. Oh, we still have one more question. Can we use any regional literature in our discussion which hasn't been translated in English? If yes, how should we cite them? Okay, yes, you can. You can always cite regional literature. You just have to convert them in English. You have to, that citation has to be written in English, because if your dissertation in English, and and that book name can be written it in both the regional language, as well as like uh, I'll just give you one example. I think I have, but yeah, I don't know, I have to find it. But just to give you a nuance, you have to write it in English. And when you're, let's say, this is a particular book that you're citing. Let's say that book is written in Bengali. So what you write is that you put the Bengali script in it, and then you sort of write that Bengali in English, right? It's and sort of it just helps you out there. I have done that, so you can always cite in that way. So make sure you write the both Bengali version as well as the it's not a translated version, but it's also the Bengali sentence written in English. Forgetting there's a term for that. Yeah. Is there, if there are any question, I don't know if I think I have sort of one or two citation like that. I have to, I don't know, I'm not, there's a huge list of scholars that I was dealing with, so it might take some time, but if you stick around, I can just give you the example to it. Is there any other question? Saurav, is there any other question that you can see that I've not read?
No, Cameron. There is no other question. I think we can wait for 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we can wrap up the session.
Okay, okay. I'm just trying to find out if it's like, I remember doing this, but I don't know what that's called. But yeah, but yeah, you have to like cite first, write the Bengali term, and then so yeah. And I think we can sort of stop. Yeah, I just want to thank you everyone for joining. And in case you have any query, you have my email ID. This is it's camellia.biswas@iitgn.ac.in. You can drop me an email. There's a bit of a time difference, but whenever I can respond to your messages. And all the best to all of you at whatever stage of dissertation, PhD, masters you all are in.